I'm Hannah. A few months ago, I got home from school and turned on my computer right away. I had a presentation for my English class due the next day. The subject was, what was happening in the world the month I was born? So I had to research all the important events that took place in March of 2005. I Googled 2005 March news. On a news site, I found stories listed by publish date. I started going through all the headlines starting from March 1st and noting down the ones I thought were important. I'd been working nonstop for hours. Finally, I got to my birth date, March 18th, 2005. What happened the day I was born? I began browsing through the news stories. A big auto show had opened. There was an earthquake in Alaska. A celebrity couple announced they were getting divorced. What a boring day to be born on, I thought, and started looking through the next day's stories. One headline caught my attention. Search continues for baby abducted from hospital. I clicked on the story. As I read it, I started to feel like I was suffocating. The police have been conducting a massive search party trying to locate the Roberts baby girl, Hannah. They are searching every home in town to find the baby who was kidnapped by a person pretending to be a nurse. The mother, Ann Taylor Roberts, said, "I feel like I'm in a nightmare. I can't believe something this awful has happened to me." I was shocked. Our last name is Roberts. My mom's name is Taylor, and I'm Hannah. I had been kidnapped from the hospital the day I was born, and my family had kept it a secret from me. I kept reading and found out there were more details to the story. My mom was in her room at the hospital, semi-conscious because she had had a C-section. A nurse came in. "I need to take the baby so the doctor can give her a physical examination. I'll bring her back in 30 minutes, she said. After a while, another nurse walked into the room. "Where's the baby?" she asked. When my mom said, the doctor wanted her for a physical, they knew I was kidnapped because physical exams for newborns did not exist. The security camera footage showed how the fake nurse had kidnapped me. First, she changed her clothes in the restroom. Then she left the hospital with me, pretending that I was her baby. Okay, so I was kidnapped, but since I'm with my family now, they must have found me. I Googled Hannah Roberts kidnapped baby and began reading the stories from the following days. At the time, there was a new chief of police in our town. He made a promise to my mom. "I'm giving you my word, I will find your daughter," he said. He put together a huge search party. They left no stone unturned, but still couldn't find me. 6 months passed. An abandoned stroller was found in a shopping mall 30 miles away. There was a 6-month-old baby girl inside. The police chief brought the baby to my family so that they could identify me. My mom was so happy at first, but then she became disappointed. "I only got to spend a few hours with my baby, so I can't be sure. But something tells me it's not her," she said, and started sobbing. My dad also said, "This baby looks nothing like me or my wife. She can't be our daughter." The police chief said, "There are no other missing babies. Let's get a DNA test. That's the only way we can be sure." They took saliva samples from my parents and the baby and sent them to a lab. When the results of the DNA test came back, everything became clear. I was definitely my parents' baby. The police chief held a press conference. He said to my mom, "I told you I would find your baby, and I kept my promise." I had learned something incredible about myself, but I had no clue that this was only the beginning. There was another secret, which was even bigger than this one. I only discovered it a few months later, and it changed my life forever. When I read about the kidnapping, my parents weren't home from work yet. I was dying to talk to them about the whole thing. Why did they hide it from me? Maybe they were ashamed because at first they thought I wasn't their baby. On the other hand, they're not wrong. I look nothing like them. My sister Ellie looks exactly like my mom. They both have big eyes and tiny noses. In other ways, she's just like my dad. She laughs silently like him, and they both turn completely red when they're angry. I, on the other hand, look like I'm adopted. I have nothing in common with my parents. When they came home from work, I told them I had something important to talk to them about. After dinner, they sent my sister to a room. They were looking at me curiously. I told them everything from the beginning. They were clearly both very upset. "Why did you hide this from me?" I asked. Mom said, "Honey, for us, this is a bad memory, and we want to forget that it ever happened. We moved to a new place so people around us wouldn't remind us of the whole thing." Dad said, "Sweetheart, this was a much bigger trauma for us than you can ever imagine. But God answered our prayers and we got you back. We don't need to talk about this anymore." I could understand what they were saying, but I still had so many questions. "Why did that woman who kidnapped me leave me in that shopping mall?" I asked. My mom said, "Hannah, you already found out all you need to know from the news. Whenever I go back to those days, my heart hurts and I can't breathe. Honey, I beg you. Please, let's not talk about this anymore. When she put it that way, I couldn't keep asking her. I kept thinking about this for the next few days. I read everything there was to read about this story online. When I figured out there was nothing else for me to dig into, I gradually stopped thinking about it. One day, as I was waiting for the bus after school, I got a text from my mom which said, "Hannah, your sister had an accident. She's about to go into surgery." I was stunned. The hospital wasn't far away. I started crying and running in a panic. When I got to the hospital, I gave a nurse my sister's name and asked where she was. The nurse said, "Your sister just went into surgery. She was hit by a car as she was crossing the street. She lost a lot of blood before the ambulance arrived. Your parents gave blood, but we might need more. Let's get some from you as well." I said, "Sure," and went to a room where they could draw my blood. Something incredible happened there. The nurse said, "Honey, we can't draw your blood because your blood type is different from your sister's. Hers is type O positive. Your parents too, but yours is AB negative. When the parents are type O positive, the kids are also type O positive. Are you adopted?" I was shocked, but I couldn't say anything to the nurse at that moment. I just said, "Yes." The nurse laughed. "It's my fault. I dragged you here because you said my sister. I didn't think you could be adopted. You make mistakes like that when you work long hours," she said. I left her and ran to my parents. They looked terrible. I didn't tell them what the nurse had told me. I just hugged them. We waited for my sister to come out of surgery. Her surgery went really well. The doctor said Ellie should recover fully in 2 weeks. We were so happy. I was so upset over what happened to her that I couldn't fully process what I'd found out about myself. It was obvious that I wasn't my parents' child. My parents had been right. The baby that was found wasn't theirs after all. So who was I? Who had abandoned me at the shopping mall? Were the DNA test results fake? And where was my parents' real daughter? This hurt the most. My parents had lost their own child and raised another one thinking that she was theirs. I thought about this for days. Finally, I made a decision. It was my parents' right to know the truth. If I didn't tell them I wasn't their real child, I'd be lying. I loved them both so much. They didn't deserve to be lied to. After telling them I wasn't their daughter, I'd move to a group home. Since I wasn't their daughter, that was where I belonged. The following day, I woke up early. I opened my closet. It was packed with clothes, but none of them were mine. These belonged to my parents' abducted child. I had stolen her life. I took only 2 t-shirts and a pair of jeans and packed them into a suitcase. My mom opened the door and peeked in. "Good morning, love. Come, breakfast is ready," she said. She was surprised to see the suitcase. She asked, laughing, "Are you going somewhere?" I couldn't keep everything inside any longer. Tears started coming down my face. I sobbed for a while. My dad heard me cry too. He came into my room. "I want to talk to you about something important," I said. I told them about what happened at the hospital and everything else that was on my mind. "I'm not your real daughter. A group home is where I belong. I love you so much, but I have to leave this house," I said, grabbing my suitcase. I was ready to leave now. My parents looked at each other. Then they came closer to me and gave me a big hug. My dad said, "You're not going anywhere. You are our daughter. We have known all of this for years." I was surprised. "You knew? How did you find out? Was that DNA report fake?" I asked. My mom nodded. "Yes, it was fake. The police chief faked it, but I'm not mad at him for it. Yes, we lost our daughter, but thanks to that report, we got another one," she said, and began telling the rest of the story. "After the kidnapping, the police chief brought you to us. Just like you read in the news, your dad and I both thought the baby they found, meaning you, wasn't ours. The DNA test convinced us that you were, but as time passed by, we figured out we had been right. You didn't look or act like us. We didn't have any common traits. We had to know the truth. Your dad went to talk to the police chief. He had retired after being diagnosed with cancer. The doctors were saying he didn't have a lot of time left. Perhaps that's why he came clean. He told us, I had just become the chief. I wanted to prove that I was the right man for the job. I promised I'd find your baby in front of the press, but I couldn't keep my promise. That's why I made it look like the baby found in the shopping mall was yours. I pressured the lab into preparing a fake DNA report. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." We were relieved to learn the truth. Obviously, we didn't start loving you any less because it wasn't your fault. You were a victim just like us. You are our precious daughter. This house is your house. We are your family. The DNA report might be fake, but our love for you is real. We all hugged. I realized I was very lucky. I loved my parents even more than before. My mom wasn't my biological mom. I hadn't grown inside her belly, but she loved me as if I had, and this made her even more special.